Joining me now is Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization and son of the 45th President of the United States, Eric Trump. Eric, great to see you. Great to have you on the show.
John, it's great to be on.
So, Eric, your dad, the President of the United States, has had a blistering pace. I mean, it's exhausting for me to watch. He was at 3 rallies yesterday. I feel like the man has done 15 rallies in the last week. Many of us on the right feel that what I've been calling on the show, the Trump bump, is going to have considerable impact for the Republican candidates in these races. Is that what you're seeing on the ground as well?
Listen, my father, first of all, he's a machine. I mean, he works harder than any person I've ever met in my life. And you saw it this week, but you also saw it in 2016, and you see it every single day. And, you know, I saw it in private industry. I saw it when he was in the business. He was always the first guy in the morning. He was the last person to leave. The guy is incredible. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. And by the way, Washington is a place that needs to work a lot harder, and they're working a lot harder under him. So, but listen, this country is winning, John. I mean, this country is winning at everything we do. We've got the fastest growing economy we've ever had. We have 4.2% GDP growth. We've got 3.7% unemployment. You know, since 1969, the year we put a man on the moon, we've only had 11 months where we had unemployment under 4%. And 6 of those months have been under my father's, leadership. It's incredible. America is the envy of the entire world. We have the fastest growing markets. People's 401ks are through the roof. They're up by 35%. I mean, this country is doing amazingly well. And, you know, I hope if there is a bump, I hope that bump comes as a direct result of the fact that as a country, we are winning again. We're finally winning again. And you know this better than anybody. We hadn't won at anything in a very long time. We hadn't won with our military. We hadn't won with jobs. We hadn't won with manufacturing. We hadn't won with trade. We didn't win with our veterans. We weren't winning at anything. And now we're winning at absolutely everything. And I hope every Republican, I hope every Trump supporter gets out to the polls this afternoon and votes, because it's critical and it's down to the wire.
It is really critical to get out and vote. All right, let's talk about the economic policies for a moment. Even Tom Brokaw, who I think it's pretty fair to assume is institutionally left, on Meet the Press this weekend, had to say that by every measure, by every metric, our economy is doing amazingly well. Savannah Guthrie tried to throw in a curveball. Tom Brokaw shut it down, said no, the economy is doing amazingly well. But then we saw reports that more establishment Republicans wanted the president to get off talking about immigration. But interestingly, we had Curtis Ellis on the show yesterday, a supporter of the president, who said immigration policy is linked to economic policy. It's incumbent upon the president to speak about both. Talk to that if you can, Eric.
Hey, so incumbent on the president to speak about all the issues. I mean, if you have 20,000 people marching on the southern border that want to come into the country illegally, yeah, I think that falls under the president to speak about. And, you know, the economy is winning, and Tom Brokaw is 100% right. It is winning on absolutely every front. And you have Obama, who's out there trying to take credit for it. I mean, just remember one thing. I want every viewer just to take one thing away from this interview, if nothing else. There wasn't a single Democrat, not a single Democrat, that voted to reduce taxes. All right. That is why our country is doing so incredibly well, because my father put together the largest tax cuts in the history of this nation. Small business taxes went from 39% down to 21%. The average family saved $2,400. I mean, everywhere I go, John, everywhere I go, every plant I go to, every manufacturing facility I go to, everybody's telling me, first of all, we're raising wages for all of our workers because we have more money based on the fact that we're not paying as much to the federal government, who would otherwise take the money and squander it and waste it. And second of all, they're reinvesting in their companies, or reinvesting in the physical properties, or reinvesting in the plant, they're buying CNC machines. I mean, That's what we want as a nation.
No, Eric, look, I couldn't agree more. I want to talk to you about Florida. It's essentially your family's second home state. Yeah. It's now my home state. I moved from New York to Florida because of the low tax rate, the business-friendly, the economic-friendly climate. Well, now we've got a Democratic candidate for governor. The mainstream media they're giddy, Eric. They're giddy. They believe Andrew Gillum's going to be the next governor of Florida. I don't believe that, for the simple reason that his cornerstone policy position is raising taxes on businesses, especially small businesses, will be crushed, and potentially a state income tax on residents. I simply don't believe, I don't care what the polls say. We know what the polls said on the morning of Election Day 2016. We were supposed to have President Hillary Clinton. I fail to believe that Floridians are going to vote for oppressive taxation. I just fail to believe that.
John, I come from New York State, where people are moving by the tens of thousands down to Florida and North Carolina and other places because they're trying to get away from, the taxation of this state. It breaks my heart. It shouldn't have to happen. But New York's one of the highest tax states in the country. It's one of the highest tax places in the world. You drive across the Tappan Zee Bridge now. You drive across the Verrazano Bridge. You're paying $20, $25 in terms of tolls. I mean, between the taxes, they kill you on the taxes. If you live in New York, you pay another 5%. Meaning in New York City proper, you pay another 5%. So people are moving left or right down to Florida. I mean, it's more businesses have moved to Florida. That's why, housing prices have gone through the roof because it's low tax. There's no income tax. There's no other things. It's a tax-friendly state. Gillum comes in. He says, "I want to raise taxes by 40%. I want to raise everybody's taxes." And look at Tallahassee. Tallahassee is a disaster. I mean, relative to the rest of Florida. And he did a terrible job there. And I mean, you would sink the economy of Florida. You would upend Florida. I mean, if you go back a decade, you saw the same thing happen with Connecticut. Connecticut was doing incredible. It was a tax-friendly state. You could go there. You do very, very well. So many businesses moved to Connecticut. And then all of a sudden taxes started going up, and everybody's moving out of the state. I mean, this isn't rocket science. I mean, it's not rocket science. And this guy would destroy the state. And quite frankly, it's you have two amazing people running there, and you need both of them. I mean, you need Ron, you need DeSantis, and you need Rick Scott desperately in Florida.
Well, Rick Scott's incredibly popular here. No matter what anyone says, Eric, I speak to people on the ground here all the time. The I-4 corridor, what we call that road from Orlando to Tampa, which is traditionally a bellwether for Florida politics. I believe Rick Scott's doing better there than people let on, especially with people from Puerto Rico who came during the hurricane. They were treated incredibly well by the Scott administration. Yeah. I think his grassroots support is greater than anyone, or the mainstream media at least, wants us to believe. But again, you've been out there. You're on the campaign trail. You work very hard behind the scenes. As I'll even call you somewhat of an architect of the strategies, not just for President Trump, but for many of these other candidates. Are you seeing that when you interact, even if anecdotally, with voters on the ground?
Listen, people are sick and tired of nonsense. I mean, that's what I can tell you. I mean, that is the simplest way to break it down. People are sick and tired of nonsense. Nancy Pelosi, people don't want her there. I mean, she's been a politician longer than I've been alive, John. I'm not old, but I'm also not like a spring chicken, right? She's been a politician longer than I've been alive. You look at Rick Scott. Rick Scott was an incredibly successful business person who's done an unbelievable job with Florida. Florida's the hottest state in the country in terms of economic growth and pretty much every other metric right now. There's other great states. North Carolina is doing incredibly well, and Texas is doing incredibly well, and so many. But I mean, Florida is so incredibly hot. But people are sick of the nonsense. I mean, I get Democrats come up to me every single day saying, "I can no longer relate to the Democratic Party." I was like a JFK Democrat. I'm not. But I can't relate to, these progressive socialists. I can't relate to that party anymore. And then I look at my 401k. My 401k has gone up by 30% over the last 2 years. I am with you guys 100%. I'm with your father 100%. I'm with Republicans 100%. I'm going to go vote red. And I hear that every single day. I mean, people don't want Nancy Pelosi. People don't want Chuck Schumer. All these guys stand for is higher taxes, attacking law enforcement, abolishing ICE. Resisting, obstructing. They've got no good ideas. They've been there for 40 years. This isn't what American politicians should be. I mean, it's people don't want it. I mean, people don't want it, John.
No, look, I agree with you. I don't think those blue dog Democrats, those union guys with American flags on their hard hats, want Speaker Pelosi. But Eric, in the minute we have left, let's talk about a nightmare scenario, one that I actually don't believe is going to happen. Donald Trump is a doer. He's not a guy that would sit around and deal with obstructionism. So in the off chance Democrats do take the House, I don't believe the polls since 2016, in the off chance they do, would we see a Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill-esque relationship between the 45th president, Donald Trump, and Democratic leadership in the House?
Listen, my father has wanted to work across the aisle every single time, and he's gotten zero support. He got zero support for Supreme Court justices. He got zero support for cutting taxes massively. Not a single Democrat voted to cut taxes. He got zero support on immigration. And so, my father keeps on reaching out, and there's zero support coming from the other side. So, listen, I think the answer is yes. He would love to reach out. He'd love the support. He'd love to work together as a smart group of people and come up with something that's beautiful and great. I just don't think they'll give him that. I mean, they want everything that he doesn't want. It doesn't matter what the issue is. They'll oppose him and they'll fight him. You had Nancy Pelosi. He came on TV the other day. I'm just going to subpoena everybody. I'm just going to subpoena everybody on the opposite side. I mean, it would turn this country into a third world country, and that's why people have to get out and vote. I mean, I don't care what you're doing today. There are no excuses. You have to get out and vote because America is winning, John. We are winning at everything we do right now. And honestly, we need to bring this one home, and it is going to be close. People have to get out. They have to get to the polls today. They have to vote.
You heard it from Eric Trump. Get out and vote. I couldn't agree more. Eric Trump, Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization. Eric, thank you very much for making the time on this busy election day. Great to see you.
Thanks so much, John.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more breaking news coverage, exclusive interviews, and great videos, click over here to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And don't forget to download the free Newsmax TV app. Newsmax TV. It's real news for real people.